My name is Jim Kuhn, and I serve as Associate Director for Library Technical and Digital Services here at the Harry Ransom Center. I'm also a longtime member of PEN, and will take this moment to recommend you visit the website of PEN America and consider supporting their work if you find it aligns with your own values. www.pen.org. Today's discussion is in conjunction with our latest exhibition, Freedom to Write, Freedom to Read, The Story of PEN, guest curated by Professor Marion Wynne Davies, University of Surrey. PEN International President Sönmez will be joined tonight by Dr. Jeanette Okor of UT's Middle Eastern Studies. A reception will follow. Burhan Sönmez is the author of 6 novels. He is the president of PEN International and a senior member of Hughes Hall College and Trinity College, University of Cambridge. His books have been translated into 48 languages and received international prizes, including the EBRD Literature Prize and Václav Havel Library Award. He was born in Turkey and grew up speaking Turkish and Kurdish. He worked as a lawyer in Istanbul before going to Britain for political reasons, where he lived in exile for several years. He has translated William Blake's book of poems, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, into Turkish. His upcoming novel, Lovers of Franz K., is the first he has published in Turkish. He lives between Cambridge and Istanbul. Dr. Jeanette Okor has coordinated the Turkish Studies program at the University of Texas at Austin since 2010. Her openly licensed, media-rich Turkish textbook, titled in English, Everything Begins with a Hello, was published by the UT Center for Open Educational Resources and Language Learning in February 2021. Drawing upon extensive experience teaching not only Turkish, but also German and English as a second language, she continues to develop new curricular materials for Turkish language instruction. Dr. Okur's current research explores the relationships between perpetrators and victims of political violence, as portrayed in transnational novels by Turkish and Iraqi Kurdish writers in exile. She is also translating the novels of Firat Jawari into English. PEN International promotes literature and freedom of expression and is governed by the PEN Charter and the principles it embodies: unhampered transmission of thought within each nation and between all nations. Founded in 1921, PEN International connects an international community of writers from its secretariat in London. It is a forum where writers meet freely to discuss their work. It is also a voice speaking out for writers silenced in their own countries. Through centers in over 100 countries, PEN operates on 5 continents. PEN International is a non-political organization which holds special consultative status at the UN and associate status at UNESCO. The PEN International and English PEN papers are preserved and accessible here at the Harry Ransom Center in a collection that numbers well over 350 boxes of archival records. We remain grateful to the National Endowment for the Humanities, which provided funds from 2017 through 2019 for the preservation, cataloging, and selective digitization of this important collection. That project, called Writers Without Borders, creating global access to the PEN International and English PEN records, resulted in updated finding aids, online teaching guides, online digitization and sharing of ephemeral and, in many cases, uniquely surviving publications of PEN chapters around the world, and laid the framework for the current exhibition, Freedom to Write, Freedom to Read, The Story of PEN. We're especially grateful as well to the Talker Foundation, which has supported this exhibition, and we welcome many of their board and friends here with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Burhan Sönmez and Jeanette Okor to the Harry Ransom Center.
Thank you for being with us tonight. I'm going to be asking a number of questions, and we'll talk for about 40 minutes or so, and then we will open up the conversation to you all and have you ask further questions. So I'd like to begin with just kind of an opening question. Can you describe to us what you see as the mission of PEN International in a nutshell?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. We usually use three different pillars. We say we defend freedom of expression, we promote literature, and we try to improve the solidarity of writers. When we describe those three characteristic principles of PEN International, maybe it will be good to look at the time when PEN was founded in 1921. Just after the First World War in Europe. It was time, like today, nations divided by big walls, hatred of the other was kind of fashion across Europe. In that difficult period, a group of writers in London, they said that we need to improve something against the division of war and politics. We need to build new bridges between nations. The best thing is culture and literature. That's how they started to gather, and immediately, 1 year after their first meeting, PEN International started to become an international organization, and it reached the United States in 1 year. And since then, for 103 years, we are trying to improve these principles in every new decade, in every new conflict.
So PEN has been around for more than 100 years. Could you tell us about some of its growing pains, some of the pivotal events that has helped it to change and grow and expand?
PEN is now said to be the oldest international human rights organization. Journalists usually ask me, they say, why so many organizations established around the same time disappeared throughout the history, how you managed to survive until today? There are many answers maybe to this question. One of the answers for myself is that we are not shy of conflicts. If there's a conflict in any region, in any country, we would like to address this issue, this problem bravely with our internal democracy and take care of it. If we try to avoid that kind of conflicts, then they get bigger and bigger, then come in front of you, let's say 2 or 5 years later, and becomes a major issue for the organization. And how we started to understand that PEN International is not only a club of writers meeting to dine in London and in other cities in Europe and in Northern America. We started to address the issue of political problems. Main turning point was 1933 Dubrovnik Congress, when the Nazi issue, especially defending Jewish writers in Germany, appeared to be the first conflict within writers' community. It was the first year of our second president, H.G. Wells. He was a great writer, but also a great thinker. He understood the gravity of this problem. 1933, many people still don't know what's the nature of fascism and Nazism spreading across Europe. And German PEN was occupied mostly by pro-Nazi writers. There were complaints that they were expelling all writers who don't agree with them, like left-wing activists, socialists, LGBT people, or mainly Jewish writers. At the Congress, Ernest Toller, at the time he was a great screenplay writer and Jewish origin, he was expelled. He came to Congress at Dubrovnik at the Assembly. He said, I'd like to address to Assembly to let you know what's going on in German Penn Center. But in our legal system, he was not an elected delegate. German Penn had other delegates. German Penn said that he cannot speak because we didn't appoint him, we expelled him. H.G. Wells used his power as president and used his vision and wisdom. He said that I'd like to invite Ernest Toller to stage to enlighten us what's going on. And then immediately, German Penn, and followed by a few other Penn centers in Europe, they left the assembly, didn't return for another 13 years. That's how first we started to see that an external conflict outside the organization might turn into an internal conflict. So we have to have certain measures to address these issues. In every decade, now in recent years, almost every year, we have to deal with new conflicts and find new ways to address those issues. I can give you many examples.
Can you give us one more example that's maybe a little more recent, maybe the last 10, 15 years?
Okay, Charlie Hebdo, let's say, incidents. After that attack in Paris, writers, mostly around Penn, they released a statement, and then it caused a big division in Penn, also outside Penn, but mainly among writers. Or the war in Ukraine created a big problem, especially in some Penn centers, because writers have different opinion how to address this political issue with the language of literature, with the language of writers, or the latest biggest conflict, Gaza, Palestine issue, in state especially. You know, you can see it's a big point of conflict. And with that kind of problems, we try to open the platform to any kind of opinion, unless they promote violence. And then we try to find a common ground. It doesn't mean that we agree 100%. Last month, 2 months ago, we held our Congress in Oxford with the cooperation of University of Oxford. And of course, you can imagine 1 week Congress, we addressed so many issues, and that Palestine-Israel conflict was at the center. There were so many different opinions and recommendations of centers. In order to manage this issue addressed properly by the delegation, we needed to work for about 6 months. Myself traveled to many countries, certain Penn centers who are very sensitive and who has already got some conflicts within their organization. We go, we speak, and we try to find a civilized way, to go through together. We are happy to fight at the beginning, but at the end we should leave the same room, arm in arm.
So this brings me to a question about how things work structurally inside of Penn. I mean, I understand that there is an umbrella organization, Penn International, and there are over 130 branches in different countries, and even some that are not bound to particular nation states, but rather linguistically organized, or groups in exile. How does communication and governance occur between the umbrella organization and the individual Penn centers? Yeah. I mean, is there, how democratic is it?
Yes. I think we are lucky because we have long history. The history established so many things and created a good foundation for us. We are very much like United Nations. Penn International, we are an international umbrella of Penn centers. We have our own structure and mandate and protocols to see things and to follow certain procedures. But each Penn center, we call them, they are independent. There are few of us, Penn America or English Penn or Penn Afghanistan or Iranian pen in exile. They are all independent. We unite only around our charter, about half-page declaration, which defends literature, freedom of expression, peace, and harmony of nations living together. These kind of principles are uniting us, but on the death, we should understand that we have 40,000 individual writer members. Every writer, you know, like an independent republic, they love their own opinions and they love fight for them. So we should understand this nature of writers, you know, publishers, editors, translators, and give them platform, and then they come, we discuss, and then we welcome different opinions, you know, and we are happy to go certain places and to have kind of debate in front of public. We are not shy of that, because this should be an example to other institutions within society, to politicians, to governments. We are together to defend the good of everyone in writing community, but we respect different opinions, backgrounds, and views.
Okay. So how do individual pen centers or even international pen international itself, how do you how does the process of deciding which writers in distress, whose cases you're going to work on, how you're going to help them, how advocacy is going to work, and at what point a case is closed?
Yeah.
Or not closed?
Yeah. For Pen International, we have our own protocols, but each center, they have their own protocols. For example, Pen America or English Pen or Pen Norway, they have their own work. They follow that. And for us, it's different. And we try to coordinate these different works. And we, for example, 15th November every year is the Day of Imprisoned Writers since 1981 with the recommendation of Pen International to United Nations. And every year we promote some cases more than others. We publish case lists, we call it. Every year we publish a case list of approximately 200 writers. From each country we choose some examples, and under that we make the list of other writers. Overall, I assume over 1,000 writers. We provide help, support. We try to assist them in any way, financially or in their court cases, if they're in prison, sometimes even their families. You know. With this line, we at the Pen International, we have board, the decision maker, but secretariat with the staff, about 20 people. Around them we have committees like Writers in Prison Committee, Women Writers Committee, Writers for Peace Committee. These all committees work with different program, and then we gather them. We create a coordination and dialogue between all these works. I can say actively more than 50 people voluntarily, writers, working to help our staff to improve this work only in Pen International. Overall, all Pen centers, only in Pen America, I know they have more than 40 staff and many writers and board members, about 100 people actively working beyond their about 1,000 members. This all power for us is an advantage to create good support for writers in need.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about your own story? You were once a lawyer. How did you come to writing, and then how did you come to work with pen?
Yes. You know, we claim that we create our own destiny and fate, but sometimes we realize that actually other elements and forces direct our destiny. I was a young human rights lawyer in Turkey, very active. It was another difficult period in 1990s, the peak time of Kurdish civil war. There was a campaign of assassinations towards intellectuals. Every day, some journalists or academics would be murdered on the street. And then someday, it was my turn to be killed. I survived, luckily, but heavily wounded. And then my treatment lasted more than 7 or 8 years. I received treatment in Switzerland, Germany, and Britain. Around the same time, I was sentenced because of some statements when we criticized Turkish army's practices towards civilians. Then I found myself in exile, having medical treatment in London. And in exile, as a lawyer, you have nothing because your license is not recognized. And my health was not good. I was always in bed. I started to write novels beyond, reading. And after a certain time, I felt that I can't keep going with this writing. And then I became a novelist. After 10 years, I managed to go back to Turkey. And I didn't return to law anymore. I was there as a novelist. And then with pen, since I was in Britain, I became member of English Pen. You can become member of more than one center. Then when I went to Turkey, I became member of Turkish Pen Center and Kurdish Pen Center. And I was again, after returning to Turkey from exile, I was again very much active in politics and human rights issues, especially working for, we call it peace process in Kurdish civil war. And when my first book published here in the States, I was invited to New York for a literary festival. After my event, some people came. They said that we would like to invite you, Pen International, to the board, work with us. I said, no, thank you, because I was so busy in Turkey. I said, I'm already doing the thing that you are doing, and my priority is now my own country. And but they were decisive. 6 months later, Frankfurt Book Fair, I had another event. They came, same people. They said, we still need you, please come. And then I said, okay, their need is something substantial. Then I accepted. Then I became board member for 5 years. After 5 years, I became president. Now this is my 3rd year, halfway through, 6 years limit.
So how do you think having practiced law, and in particular human rights law, prepared you well for this position?
I think it's advantage. When you think the situation of writers, you have knowledge. Being a novelist gives you power of imagination, but also being someone in exile. I myself like a pen case, because I know what it's like, being away from home, leaving your loved ones behind, trying to establish a new world. Because rescuing someone is not the end of the road. Mostly we try to rescue writers if they are in a troubled region, like in Afghanistan or Myanmar or Iran. We try to bring them to a safe place, mostly in Europe. But it's not enough. We just talked about Ernest Tolle, Jewish writer in 1933. We tried to defend him. Then he managed to come to the United States. You know how he died? In New York, committed suicide. Because the support, the help should be continuous. That's why the solidarity of writers, since I'm a writer, I'm talking about my own community, it should be for life. We should defend each other, we should share our bread and our worry, our wound, and our hope. Otherwise, we will lose so many people, valuable people.
Let's see. I'm wondering if you might talk a little bit about some of the pen centers that are not directly aligned with nation states, that don't have legal charters in their country,
Yeah.
and what challenges those chapters face, and
Yeah.
I guess what kind of, do they have a different kind of relationship with PEN International or not?
Yeah. We try to have an equal relation with those centers. For example, in Iran, legally you cannot establish a pen center because government will not let. So we establish pen center in exile. We call it Iranian pen center in exile, Chinese pen center in exile. My own nation's Kurdish pen center was founded in 1988 in Germany in exile. So we mainly, when new center request comes, we ask them to register in their own country to become a legal entity if it's possible. If it's not possible legally, then we try to improve a different position for them. With that way, we try to have an equal position for every group of writers, without looking the situation of their country. Otherwise, we will lose some of them. And also, there are some different groups. For example, Esperanto language, not spoken anywhere. So we have an Esperanto pen center established by a group of writers who don't live in a single country. They're across Europe and other countries. And they come to assembly, they share their report with us, and they improve our policy. This is, I think, the power of PEN International, that we improve throughout our history by seeing the situations locally and regionally with their needs, and see that every problem has a different color.
Could you tell us about some of the, I guess, more interesting cases that you've had to deal with in the last 3 years?
Oh, okay. Mostly sad stories, because we are advocacy group, saving writers. We are 103 years old. We achieved our biggest rescue operation in Afghanistan 3 years ago, when American and British forces left the country in the middle of the night. And we had a very strong, very well organized Afghan pen center. Suddenly you see your fellow friends, everyone in despair, their family members. They have nowhere to go. We rescued more than 100 writers. It took us a few months, lots of new funding, because it came out of surprise. We didn't have enough budget for that big operation, and we needed a big diplomatic operation, because the country's borders were closed. It was impossible to leave country. A writer and his or her partner and children, because we are not only rescuing who are writing book, because they are part of family. So this was very sad, very big story. For example, just that crisis started, I was elected. And because of election of a new president, it was on the press. And some writers, it happened a few times in Afghanistan, they are in hiding. They lost their contact with their fellow writers, with anyone. They succeeded to find this news of myself elected as president of PEN International but they couldn't find my contact number. And they sent a letter to me, wrote 10 different email addresses with my name, ending with Gmail, Hotmail, Penn International name, everything. And when we received that kind of emails, person I, with my team and with Afghan Penn, we share these details, whether it's genuine or not. So many emails received, all of them were genuine after our check, and then we helped them, we found them, and we got them to safety.
So you mentioned funding. Could you tell us a little bit more about how Penn's various programs are financed and who your donors are, how you make decisions about money, and how you manage to stay politically neutral while taking donations?
That's very important. 103 years old, until 27 years ago, we didn't have a legal entity. We don't know how it went through, all this balance and check and, controlling the system. 2 generations before me, thanks to them, they realized that we need to have something serious. And then we applied in Britain, to become a registered charity. Now it's been about nearly 30 years. Now we are a legal charity. That means it's a difficult process in Britain to become a charity in England, because auditors, they come and every year, 6 months, they investigate and check everything. The way you make decision, the way you accept membership, and every penny. This is a difficult process, but it's a great relief and advantage for us. Through that way, now we see that there is no possibility that anything will go wrong. And we, every year, thanks to that legal requirement, we publish every penny we receive on our website. It's a legally compulsory process. Who are our main funders? There are different levels. One is Penn Centers. They pay member due. Then we have, we call it, we established it about 10 years ago, we call it Publisher Circle. We invited big and rich publishers to become member of a circle and donate money every year. And similarly, then we established a writer circle. We invited writers voluntarily just to support us financially by donation. We publish their list on our website. You can see everything. And also, we invite big funders to donate money. You can again see the list of funders, about 20, nearly 20 big organizations, including SIDA, Swedish Development Agency, and similarly in Norway again, they also fund our work. There are certain limits for us. We are very jealous for our political independency and also financial independency. I will not give you a name, but it's a recent thing. Just 3 years ago, a big company, big capitalist corporation, since they love human rights struggle, they came to us, they said, we love you, we would like to donate you a substantial amount of money. We said, no, thank you. Because we know that company, we know that they got involved with so many incidents of breach of human rights in different countries. So we always do that kind of check and then go through. We need money always. Now our budget nearly $2 million, only Penn International. Penn America, their budget is over 20 million. If now they give me $100 million, still I would say that's not enough, because the demand is huge every year. And Also, we established in 1970s, we call it Pan Emergency Fund. It's a sister organization. It's not part of us, but every year they come to Congress, they report to Assembly. Their only mission is to support writers financially with our reports. When we let them know that certain writer in certain country in difficulty and they need, or their family needs some financial support, then Pan Emergency Fund use their budget. They have a different board and different group of people donating, mostly publishers in Netherlands, in Britain, in Germany. This kind of different works we are trying to organize with a certain transparency. And we improved our relationship with transparency organizations in the last few years. One of them is called Transparency International. Their headquarters is in Berlin. I went to visit them 2 years ago to see their work and how we can improve something together. Another new initiative started here in Boston, in the US. They are, with the support of the United Nations, a group of judges, and with the support of 45 countries, I think now, try to establish an international anti-corruption court. We officially became partner with them. So, against corruption, in favor of transparency, having as much financial support as possible for the good of writers. That's the Penn's work.
If you had $100 million, how would you want to expand your programming?
We have lots of different programming. For example, there's a program we improved in last decade. We call it civil society program. We have certain amount of budget for that work, and over about 12 or 13 countries, mostly in Africa and Latin America, we try to improve basis of education for girls and women, especially our target for them. We have similar so many works doing that kind of works, in Malawi, in Peru, in Chiapas, and for writers in prison, for writers fighting for peace, for women writers, and also we have Translation and Linguistic Rights Committee. And this year, for the first time, this was one of my promise to organization, we established Young Writers Community for the first time in our history, because organizations like PEN usually led and occupied by, let's say, established writers. They come because they have name, they have reputation, they sit, and young people, they cannot find place, to go in. And we said it's now time to open a new chapter in our history. We've been working on this last 3-4 years, and now we established this Young Writers Committee, and in the near future, I think we are going to make a big change in our organization.
All right, I guess it's, I said 40 minutes, so maybe we should open up questions to the audience. Yes?
I have a question. So what is the process of helping already imprisoned authors? Like, is there an on-site staff or negotiations done with the governments?
So the way we defend or support them, you mean?
Like rescue them, like already imprisoned authors and
Okay, yeah. We have no limit to help them in legal boundaries, let's say. And we write letters, we organize campaigns, and we meet diplomats. And we organize international campaigns, for example. Let me give you a couple of examples recently. In Egypt now, one of prominent cases is the case of Ala Abdul Fattah. He's been in prison for many years, unlawfully. We know his case very well. We've been through everything, his documents. Ala is Egyptian activist and writer, but he is also a British citizen. So last year when the former Prime Minister of Britain traveled to Egypt, we said, he's your citizen, and he's in prison unlawfully. He didn't kill anyone. He just criticized the government who came and took power through a military coup. You should defend your own citizen. This kind of things we do. We never shy. We go to prime minister, we go to kings, those, at the top. And sometimes we are successful. Sometimes we are not successful. For example, Julian Assange case, it was very popular across the world. He was a journalist. He released WikiLeaks documents, especially against Americans' practices in Iraq during the war. And after many years of campaigning, we managed his freedom now. He's at home with his family back. And in my own country, I can say that we managed to rescue many people from prison. But on the other hand, there are cases that you are not successful. 2 or 3 years ago, a pen member, a young poet, Joe Kimi in Myanmar, executed by the court order. We couldn't save him. The first international campaign we were successful was about Arthur Koestler. In 1930s, during the Civil War in Spain, we managed and we saved him. But around the same time, another poet in the same Civil War in Spain was murdered, Lorca. We couldn't save Lorca. That means we have power, but we need more power.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. I recently read an interview we gave to this Turkish newspaper called...
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Yeah. I recently read an interview you gave to this Turkish newspaper called about mother tongues, and then there you talk about Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and then the fact that you were inspired by him. So since we're currently at the center that houses Marquez's writings, HRC, so I wanted to bring us to that point of communality and ask a question about Latin American literature maybe. So a key commonality between these two regions is that their literatures are often marked by tension between the desire for free expression and the constraints imposed by the governments that seek to suppress marginal, minoritarian voices, even though they might not be minoritarian, but they're called like that. So the question is, as you, the president of PEN International, and as a person from Turkey, what kinds of commonalities do you see between Turkish or in general Middle Eastern writers vis-a-vis Latin American writers in how they continue to write in the face of censorship and state sanctions?
Thank you very much. It's a very broad question. I will try to find a way. For example, in Turkey, let's give with the bad examples. We had our first military coup in 1960. The first military coup in Latin America was 1964 Brazil. Then we had our second military coup in 1972. 1 year later came military coup in Chile. Then 76 in Argentina, then 80 again Turkey. So when I meet Latin American writers, we all understand each other very easily. Imprisonment, military, executions, exile. And when it comes to addressing the issue in a literary language, I also myself find very much closeness with Latin Americans. I can say in Turkey, Latin American literature is very popular, in many places. When I published my second novel, it's called Sins and Innocence, in Turkey and in Italy, they called me a new Marquess, a new Marquess from Anatolia. I felt proud, of course, but in the end, it has nothing to do, Marquez is a giant, but you like to be in their shadow, And today, when we address the issues, coming from similar situations, I think we have similar languages. With those writers, I can say. Since you said Latin America, I'd like to give you an example. Interesting PEN International mission. I just saw one part of exhibition in one corner say that CIA donated PEN International in 1960s at the time of Arthur Miller when he was president. Poor Miller, he didn't know anything about it because all allegation goes through our then International Secretary, Mr. Carver. I don't know how true it was. We are going to make a thorough search now about it since we saw it in this exhibition. In 1973, when military coup happened in Chile, a few months later, Amnesty International and PEN International sent a secret mission of 2 people. It was just published last year here. And, writer William Styron, his wife, Rose Styron, poet, she was sent. She took her teenage daughter, it was a very dangerous thing, to travel to dictatorial Chile. When she was sent there, I spoke with her, and she also wrote in the book. She just published a memoir. She said that PEN International especially asked me to find the hidden poems written by Pablo Neruda, because Neruda was held by dictatorship, then he died in hospital just after they came to power. And there was a rumor that before he died, he buried some of his poems in a street, in certain corner. And they gave that certain location to our secret delegate. They said, please go that place, find, this is one of our mission. It's our heritage. Now we see everything here. It's the heritage of humanity. Sadly, she couldn't find that poems. Still, we are looking for that poems. It's been over 50 years. Next year, we are in Poland. After next year, every year we hold our Congress in different country. After next year, 2026, September, we will be in Chile. We will search for that again.
Yes.
Organizationally, let's pretend I'm a new and upcoming writer, that you talked about, opening that division, if you will. How does one go about becoming a member? And when you answer that, I'll follow.
How one become a member, you say? PEN International doesn't take individual membership. Only country centers can become a member. You need to go to your country center, if here in America or in England, English PEN or Scottish PEN. And we don't impose certain procedures to centers. They are independent. For example, in Turkey, I know they are still like club-like organization. If you would like to become member, you must have at least 2 books published by prominent publishing houses. You should fill up a form and signed by current 2 other members. I don't know how it works in States. You have to just see their website and check it. But some countries now changing their rules. For example, English Pen and Pen Norway. They recommended something new and we promote it. And they started to accept readers as a member as well. Because the idea, which I believe that reader is part of a book. Because we take writers, publishers, editors, translators, journalists, all can become Pen's member. Why not readers? They are the real owner of the book. We are going to die. My publisher is going to die. So they opened the door, English Pen and Pen Norway. I hope other pens will follow that suit soon.
My follow-up question is, other than helping those in exile or in prison, what's the benefit of a membership?
So many writers writing to me, and at the end they feel disappointed. They say, "Sir, I'd like to publish a book, can you help me?" Or, "I'd like to find a publisher in certain country, can you help me?" I say, "No." There are writers' organizations doing this work. You can go them, you know. They work wonderfully, you know, in different countries. But PEN International dedicated to the cause of freedom of expression. We are defending a right to write freely. Now, I live in Britain. I have a study. I'm so comfortable. I sit there. On my wall, I have a picture of Arthur Miller with Pablo Neruda in 1965 in New York, sorry, in 1966. And I got a picture of Harold Pinter. I see them, I write freely. I want the same freedom for everyone. For a writer in Yemen. In Yemen, we don't have pen center. But still, we fight for them. We don't have pen center in Bahrain. But we defend writers in prison in Bahrain. This is the thing we promise. I don't say that everyone should come. But there are 40,000 people now fighting for each other and for other writers.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I had a question. I'm curious how PEN International or PEN centers balance the need for advocating for freedom of expression with disagreements about what is being expressed. So you were talking before about a tolerance, right, for disagreement. But for example, hate speech, I'm wondering is there a statement that PEN International or PEN centers have about hate speech if your PEN center was sort of moving in that direction? I think you mentioned Germany before, 33 pulling themselves, and I was also kind of curious, has PEN International ever exiled one of the units, or is there no power to do that because the franchises are kind of independent?
We do this almost every year. We expel centers. And every year we accept new PEN centers. For a few decades, we are always around 130, even though about 2 centers being established every year. We expel, or call it cease to exist, mainly because of their own problem, because they don't have enough people to work for PEN, because they are not like Americans or English or German in Africa or in South Asia. It's so difficult to keep something going on. And then they say that, okay, we are not able to go on. And then we say, okay, cease to exist. But in some cases, we say that we don't want to work with you. The reason is, for us, main thing is promoting violence. But still, it's a long process. I'm president. I don't say that, okay, you are out. I'd like to give you this example. You should know this because it was on the press all around. In Russia, we have more than one centers, because big region, and St. Petersburg and other places, Moscow. And Russian president on a live TV program at the beginning of war in Ukraine, he said that about Lviv, a city, a major city in Ukraine, he said that we should erase the city from earth. You can have a different opinion about war. I can say I don't agree with you, but you cannot use the language of violence. Still, we said, we have reported this. It's about 2 years process to expel a center. This is part of our democracy. We said, we saw this. This is documents. Please explain this. And they defended that person. And then we asked the Penn Center, we said, please remove that person from that post. We will not recognize him. And they removed him. They brought another person, and we checked. That person has been using the same language in different programs. We said, please find someone proper. And then they reacted. They said, no, we defend both of them. Then we came to assembly. We gave report to assembly, and assembly said, 1 year suspension, we cannot expel directly. First, we give them still 1 year. Okay, please change and you make a good amendment or revision with an organization. If you don't, and then on the second year we expel. This kind of things happens. If we don't do this, we cannot protect the dignity of PEN International. In many places, a PEN director using misogynistic language towards women members, we cannot accept this. We send a warning. We say, please, this person is not proper for a PEN movement. What kind of constitution or paper you have in your country, we don't know, but we would like to see it and address the issue. But that kind of issues always takes a long time. That means for organization like this, that's the reason we survived too long. We spent too much energy with internal problems. We don't just cut, we don't just punish. We try to find a solution, give them time, but in the end, you have to spend your energy. Instead, I would prefer to use that energy for rights in need, That's the real target of our organization.
Okay, time is running out, so maybe we'll take one last question. Yes.
So we're facing a climate of, for simplistically, I'll say banning books, but limiting content to certain ideas and limiting distribution. Our librarians, our educators are facing accusations of criminal intent for distributing some of that content. What would PEN's involvement be in the distribution of, in the banning of books?
I think PEN America are mainly working on this issue here, and we support them in many cases. It's a new custom in populist politics, banning something you don't like. That means I don't have enough power to live with the things that I don't like. Democracy is something against this. I don't like you, but I'd like to discuss. I'd like to hear you. I'd like to criticize you. Maybe sometimes I want to have a fight with you. But we are all part of the same community. Otherwise, then we will have single leader, single nation, single religion, single gender, single money, big company, and the world is going to a wrong direction in that case. And just connecting that question with the previous question, I forgot to answer the hate speech part. It's mainly they use the excuse of hate speech in that kind of book bannings. In every decade, we address new conflicts and new challenges to freedom of expression. Traditionally, authoritarian regimes use certain methods to oppress writers, like censorship, or imprisonment, or murdering. That was easy for us to describe these evil acts of governments, or violence or censorship. And it was described in novel 1984 by George Orwell. But now, there are new challenges, like fake news, hate speech, loss of privacy through all this surveillance around the world. These things now creating a new era of suffocating writers. You know, people are being threatened, being oppressed, and the thing they don't say easily spreads, you know, on social media. We need to address these kind of things. In last decade, we've been working, and still we will work on hate speech and fake news especially, and loss of privacy. And very soon, in the next Congress, we would like to also address the loss of planet, the ecocide, the environmental issue, which is also part of writers' literature. Every year, especially in Latin America, in Asia, so many writers are being murdered because they defend environment. It is not something outside our daily life anymore. So we should see the new challenges and improve new methods to address them and to accept them.